Welcome back to Inherited Dawn, a One Piece podcast. We are breaking down Chapter 90 today, What You Can Do.
And what a title. It operates on so many levels. It's a question Arlong poses, but it's also a statement of intent from Luffy. We've seen Luffy fight before. We've seen him get angry. But this chapter, this is different. This is where he defines his entire philosophy of leadership.
This is the mission statement for the Straw Hat Pirates, delivered as a punch to the jaw. Oda lays it all out, and it is a thing of beauty. This might be one of the most important chapters in the entire East Blue saga. Seriously, if you had to pick one chapter to explain who Monkey D. Luffy is and what his crew is all about, you could do a lot worse than this one.
Absolutely. It's the kind of chapter that retroactively enriches every moment that came before it and provides the foundational thesis for everything that comes after. If you believe that a captain's story is the anchor for the whole crew's journey, you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single piece of how this legacy gets built.
Let's get into it. The fight is on. Luffy has landed some good hits, but Arlong is just getting started. He's shaken off the Gomo Gomo no Kane, and he's not smiling anymore.
Arlong acknowledges Luffy is strong, but he's furious now. He says Luffy should have just drowned because now he has to face his rage for what the crew did to his officers. And there's a real sense of indignation there. It's not just that his men were defeated, it's that they were defeated by mere humans. His whole worldview is being challenged, and all he has to fall back on is anger.
The mood is tense. Everybody watching, the villagers, Johnny, Yosaku, they all know this is the main event. And Sanji, cool as ever, just casually remarks that, if Luffy loses, we all die.
And he says it with such calmness. It's not panic, it's not fear, it's a simple statement of fact. Sanji has been on this crew for such a short time, and he already has such absolute, unshakable faith in Luffy that he can treat the possibility of his own death as a casual observation. He's already assessed the situation and understands the stakes completely. His job is done. Now it's the captain's turn.
It shows how much he gets it. He left the Bharati looking for the All Blue, but he signed on for this. He signed on for a captain who would put everything on the line, and he's willing to bet his life on that captain's victory. It's a huge character moment for Sanji, delivered in the most understated way possible.
Nojiko immediately ups the stakes. Not just them. All of East Blue is doomed. It's the first time we've had that kind of scale attached to a threat. This isn't about one village anymore. Until now, Arlong was a local problem, a terrible, monstrous problem, but contained to this archipelago.
Exactly. We thought his ambition was just to rule over Nami's home, but Nojiko reframes it. She's heard his plans, his boasts. This isn't the end game for him. It's the staging ground. Arlong Park is the capital of a future empire built on the subjugation of all humans in this sea. It really reframes Arlong. He's not just a local tyrant. He's a legitimate sea-wide catastrophe waiting to happen if Luffy can't stop him here and now. He's a proto-emperor for the East Blue.
It also gives an incredible amount of weight to the Marines' incompetence or corruption in this sea. Some of the Marines we've seen are a joke, and the implication is that no one else has been able to touch Arlong. He's been here for 8 years building his power, and the world government has done nothing. Luffy isn't just fighting a tyrant, he's fighting the personification of a systemic failure.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if Luffy hadn't started his journey when he did. The whole sea would have fallen. Man, the dominoes Oda sets up.
And Arlong, in his arrogance, decides to lecture Luffy. He asks him, "Do you know the difference between you and me?" He's teeing up a big speech about fishman superiority, about racial destiny, about power.
He wants to intellectually dominate Luffy before he physically destroys him. He wants to break his spirit. He wants Luffy to understand his own inferiority before he dies. It's a classic villain monologue moment, and Luffy's answer is just perfect. It's so unbelievably sincerely Luffy. He thinks for a second, a genuine thoughtful pause, and says, "The nose?"
It's one of the greatest comedic takedowns in the series. Then he lists webbed hands and a few other things. He's just listing physical differences he can see. He completely sidesteps the philosophical racial trap Arlong is laying.
Because it's not a trap to him. He doesn't think in terms of race or species. He just sees a guy who looks different. It's the most devastatingly innocent takedown of Arlong's entire ideology. Arlong has spent his life consumed by the concepts of racial hierarchy and the perceived injustices done to his people, and he's weaponized that into a doctrine of supremacy. And Luffy's brain just doesn't have the software to run that program. He looks at a fishman and thinks, cool, a fishman, not an inferior or superior being.
It's a theme that becomes central to the entire story. It's almost like a core part of who he is, this inability to see the lines that other people draw between themselves. Race, status, power. To Luffy, a person is a person. And this guy in front of him is just a guy who hurt his friend. That's the only distinction that matters.
And it makes Arlong snap. He goes from condescending lecturer to rabid animal in a split second. He roars that the difference is their race and lunges, jaws wide open, going for a killing dite.
That panel is horrifying. The teeth are massive. The jaw is unhinged. This isn't a martial arts move. This is a great white shark trying to bite a seal in half. Oda really sells the pure, predatory nature of the attack.
That attack is terrifying. It's not a punch or a kick, it's pure predator instinct. He's trying to literally eat him, and Luffy is just barely dodging this flurry of teeth snapping inches from his face. It's so fast and relentless.
He gets pinned against a pillar, and it looks like it's over. Arlong has him by the neck, holding him in place. There's nowhere left to dodge. The tension in these panels is masterful. You genuinely feel like this could be the end.
But this is where the devil fruit comes in. This is why Luffy is so hard to fight. He does something nobody else could possibly do. He stretches his neck like a rubber band, pulling his head back and away just as Arlong's jaws clamp down. The physics of it are absurd, but the creativity is off the charts. He's not just using his power to punch far, he's using it to fundamentally alter his own body to survive.
Arlong bites clean into the stone pillar behind him. Usopp, watching it from the sidelines, thinks for a second that his teeth will break, which would be the logical outcome. Stone is harder than enamel, generally speaking.
But it's the opposite. The pillar just explodes. It doesn't crack, it doesn't chip, it crumbles into dust from the force of that bite. It's a full page spread of just raw, destructive power. Sanji points it out. If that had been Luffy's body, he'd be in pieces.
It's such a clear and visceral demonstration of the physical power Arlong is working with. That's not training. That's pure biology. His body is a weapon in a way that a human's body can't be. This is the evidence for his entire supremacist argument, right there in a pile of rubble.
And Oda needed to show us that. We needed to see, not just be told what the power gap is. Luffy is strong, sure, but he's up against a monster whose very physiology is on another level.
Arlong boasts about it too. He pulls his face out of the wall, teeth totally unharmed, and says, "This is the power humans lack. This is why they're inferior." He's doubling down. But Luffy's comeback is so simple, so effective. He just brushes himself off and says, "I can just break stone with my fists."
I love that line so much. It's so dismissive. He's not intimidated. He's just matching him. You have your strength, I have mine. It's not about which is better, it's just a statement of fact. You bite through walls, I punch through them. Let's get on with it. It's another refusal to engage with Arlong's philosophical framing.
It puts them back on an even playing field, at least in Luffy's mind. But Arlong is convinced he has one more card to play, the one that always works against devil fruit users.
But Arlong found the one thing he thinks is a trump card. He screams that how weak humans are and how Luffy can't even save himself if he falls in the water. He's attacking the very source of Luffy's unique power.
He's not wrong. It's the fundamental weakness of so many powerful people we've met so far. They all have this Achilles heel, and he expects Luffy to argue, to deny it, to show shame or fear. That's what a normal person would do.
And Luffy just doesn't. He straight up says, yeah, you're right. And then the most important part, I need help because of them. He just owns it. There's no shame, no denial. It's just a fact of his life. He doesn't see it as a weakness. He sees it as the reason he has a crew.
It's a profound moment. He's reframing his greatest vulnerability as his greatest strength. His inability to swim is the physical manifestation of his need for others. And because he has that need, he gathers nakama. He builds a family. Arlong, who sees himself as self-sufficient and superior, can't comprehend this.
And as he says it, he grabs 2 swords from a couple of the unconscious fishmen on the ground, a cutlass and a katana.
You can feel Sanji's confusion. He's like, does he know how to use those? I think we've seen him try to use swords before, and it was a disaster. He was a clumsy, ineffective mess.
It looked like a kid swinging a wiffle ball bat, so when he picks them up here, everyone, the readers, the characters, is thinking, oh no, what is he doing? This is a terrible idea.
Arlong seems just as bewildered. Luffy starts swinging them just wildly, like a complete amateur. It's not a style, it's just flailing. He's holding them the wrong grip, his stance is all wrong. He's just pure chaotic energy.
It looks ridiculous. Arlong just casually dodges, sidestepping these huge, clumsy swings. He even parries one of the swords with his nose, sending it flying out of Luffy's hand. That's how much he's disrespecting this attack.
Then Luffy swings the other sword, the katana, and it shatters against Arlong's nose. His skin is literally harder than steel. It reinforces the power gap again. Luffy is using a weapon, and Arlong's own body is a better weapon.
Arlong thinks he's just messing around, that he's a fool who doesn't know when he's outmatched. But it was all a distraction. It was a wind-up. Every one of those wild swings was building something.
Exactly. The wild, chaotic energy of the sword swings was building momentum. It was a feint on a grand scale, not to trick Arlong into an opening, but to load a spring. The spring just happened to be Luffy's own body.
He flows directly from that final broken sword swing into a cartwheel, using the rotation to multiply the force and channels all of it into a massive punch straight to Arlong's jaw. The paneling is incredible. You see the sword swing, the shatter, the spin, and then bam, the impact.
And we hear a crack. His teeth, the symbol of his power, the things that just shattered a stone pillar, are broken, shattered by a rubber man's punch. Not just one, but a whole section of them.
The visual of Arlong's pride just crumbling out of his mouth is incredible. The thing he was just boasting about, the symbol of his superiority, is lying in pieces on the ground. And then Luffy gives the speech, the one that defines everything.
He doesn't gloat, he doesn't pose, he just yells it, full of passion, his face a mask of righteous fury. You don't get it! I can't use swords, you idiot!
I can't navigate, I can't cook, I can't lie. He's listing his crew. He's listing Zoro, Nami, Sanji, and Usopp. He's naming his own deficiencies out loud in the middle of a battle for his life.
Let's break that down because every line is aimed at someone. I can't use swords, you idiot. He's shouting that for Zoro, his first mate, the greatest swordsman in the world in his eyes. He's saying that's his job and nobody does it better. Then, I can't navigate. He says this while looking in the direction of Arlong Park's main building, where Nami is. It's a declaration. You forced her to draw maps for you, but she is my navigator, and I can't survive without her. It is the most powerful affirmation of her value he could possibly give in that moment.
Absolutely. And I can't cook? That's for Sanji, the man who believes food is life, who saved him from starvation. And I can't lie? That's for Usopp. He's not saying it's a moral failing, he's saying it's a skill he doesn't have. Usopp's tall tales, his tricks, his tactical fibbing, Luffy sees that as a legitimate and necessary talent. He's validating every single member of his crew.
And he finishes with the most vulnerable statement a shonen protagonist could make. I know that without their help, I would die.
A shonen protagonist in the climax of a fight declaring his own helplessness. It's a completely different way of looking at strength. He's not strong despite his weaknesses. He's strong because he knows them and has people to cover them. His strength isn't in himself, it's in his crew. His power is the power of trust.
It completely breaks Arlong's brain. His entire worldview is predicated on the idea that a captain must be the strongest, the most capable, that a leader cannot show weakness. He sees Luffy's statement not as a philosophy, but as a confession of incompetence. He asks the obvious question, if you admit to all that, why would anyone follow you? What is it that you can do?
Everything goes quiet. The villagers are watching. His crew is watching. This is the moment of truth. What gives you the right to be their captain? What is your role in this system of interdependence you've just described?
And Luffy, calm, confident, after all that yelling, just looks him dead in the eye. The rage is gone, replaced by a quiet, absolute certainty.
He says, I can beat you.
Chills every single time. It's the most succinct and powerful declaration of purpose in the entire series.
Super. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the contract between Luffy and his crew. He's saying, Zoro, you handle the swords. Nami, you find the path. Sanji, you keep us alive. Usopp, you handle the tricky stuff. My job? I will be the one who can beat the guy none of you can. You handle the rest. I will handle this. It is the most perfect, concise, and powerful character statement imaginable.
It's the ultimate specialization. He doesn't need to be good at everything. He needs to be the best at the one thing that matters most when everything is on the line, winning the impossible fight. And his crew, his friends, they all cheer. Johnny and Yosaku are crying. Sanji has a huge grin on his face. They get it. They signed up for this. This is the captain they chose to follow.
They believe in him 100%, but Arlong is just done talking. He's exasperated. He calls Luffy a braggart with a useless sense of pride and thinks he's just a talkative fool. He can't compute what he's just heard, so he dismisses it as nonsense.
And then we hear a sound, a grinding, clicking noise, a sound that shouldn't be coming from a person's mouth.
It's one of the most horrifying things Oda has ever drawn. His broken teeth just fall out, and a brand new, perfect set grows into place in seconds. The panels focus right on his gums as these new razors slide into place. It's grotesque.
Luffy is in total shock. His mouth is wide open. We're all in shock. What kind of ability is that? It's not a devil fruit. It's something else.
Arlong explains, he's a shark fishman, and just like a real shark, his teeth are endlessly replaceable. But there's a twist, a truly terrifying video game boss mechanic twist.
Every new set that grows in is stronger, harder, and sharper than the last. He just healed the damage and got a power-up from it. Luffy's big, triumphant, symbolic punch is completely invalidated in an instant.
That is a broken ability, bro. How do you fight that? You can't wear him down. Every time you manage to land a critical hit on his main weapon, it just comes back stronger. Luffy's big moment of shattering his teeth meant nothing, or worse than nothing. It just made Arlong stronger. The despair in that moment is real.
And then it gets even more grotesque. He grows in the new set, then proves his point by reaching into his own mouth and pulling them out, holding this full row of razor-sharp teeth as a weapon.
And another set grows in. So now he's got teeth in his mouth and a set of jaw blades in each hand. He's a walking blender of shark teeth. He has become a living weapon in a way we haven't seen before.
He screams again about the superiority of fishmen, that their very bodies are weapons that evolve, and he lunges at Luffy with his new jaw swords.
Luffy takes a slash, and there's blood, a big spray of it. For a second, you think he's been seriously wounded, but then Arlong freezes. He looks at his weapon, confused, and he realizes the blood isn't from Luffy. Luffy grabbed one of the downed fishmen from earlier, the one he got the swords from, and used him as a human or fishman shield.
That is such a Luffy move. It's not honorable, it's not a samurai duel, it's a pirate fight. There's a body on the ground? Great, now it's a shield. Problem solved. It's that same pragmatic, anything-goes creativity we saw when he stretched his neck. It's pure instinct for survival and victory.
And this, finally, seems to be what truly gets under Arlong's skin. Not Luffy's strength, not his words, but the disrespect. He just used one of his superior race, one of his own crewmates, as a simple meat shield for a lowly human. It's the ultimate insult to everything Arlong believes in.
He gets absolutely furious. His eyes go bloodshot. He screams, "You bastard!" And you see the last shot of the chapter is a close-up on Luffy's face. He's tossed the fishman aside. He's not scared. He's not even worried. He has that look.
He has an idea. That glint in his eye, he's found it. In that moment of pure disrespect, in seeing Arlong's true trigger, he's found the real weakness. It's not the teeth. It's the pride.
Man, this fight is a roller coaster. Just when you think Luffy has the upper hand, Arlong reveals a new, terrifying power. And just when you think Arlong has him cornered, Luffy finds a new angle. What a chapter! It's an emotional and tactical seesaw.
Before we get to predictions, I have to mention Oda's author comment for the week. He said he went to the judges meeting for the Tezuka Awards, and it was great to hear amazing stories from amazing people.
That's so cool. You can feel how much he respects the art of storytelling, and it shows in chapters like this. The construction is just masterful. This chapter is a masterclass in character development through action. We learn everything we need to know about both Luffy and Arlong by how they fight and what they say while they fight.
It really is. The emotional beats are just as powerful as the physical ones. Luffy's speech is a bigger blow to Arlong than the punch that broke his teeth, and Arlong's regenerating teeth are a bigger psychological blow to Luffy than any physical attack.
Absolutely. Okay, predictions. But first, if that moment where Luffy declared, "I can beat you," gave you a jolt, maybe give that like button a little gomu gomu no pistol. It helps the show out a ton.
What are you thinking for Chapter 91, Franky?
Okay, I have two. First, Luffy's idea is about Arlong's pride, not just in himself, but in his home, his throne, his symbol of power, Arlong Park itself. Luffy is going to start destroying Arlong Park. He's going to tear down the monument Arlong built to his own power, and it's going to force Arlong to choose between fighting him and trying to save his precious headquarters. He's going to systematically wreck the place.
I like that. A psychological attack that manifests as a physical one. Attack the symbol to enrage the man. He just learned that disrespect is Arlong's biggest trigger, so he's going to disrespect the biggest thing Arlong has.
Exactly. Second prediction, we're going to get a new named move from Luffy specifically to counter the teeth weapons. Arlong is wielding them like swords or claws. I'm thinking we get something like a Gomu Gomu no Kaginawa, a grappling hook move where he wraps his arm around Arlong's to disarm him, using his rubberiness to trap the weapons instead of just blocking them. Or maybe a Gomu Gomu no Fusen, where he inflates just as Arlong slashes, and the teeth get stuck in his rubbery body so he can disarm him. Something that uses his rubber properties defensively for a change.
Interesting. Taking away the new toys. My turn. My first prediction is that Luffy's idea is to use Arlong's crew against him, but not physically. He's going to verbally tear down Arlong's whole philosophy in front of the other fishmen. He's going to point out how he left his crewmates to get beaten, how he's using one as a shield right now, how he cares more about his throne than his men, and it's going to make Arlong sloppy with rage. He's going to dismantle the idea of fishman's superiority before he dismantles Arlong himself.
Ooh, the emotional damage before the physical damage. He saw that Arlong reacted more to the insult to his race than to the pain of his broken teeth, so Luffy's going to lean into that. I love it.
My second prediction, this is Nami's arc. She has to have a role in the final resolution. I predict that as the fight rages on, it's going to damage the foundations of Arlong Park in a specific way, and Nami will be the one to spot it. She's been trapped in that building for 8 years. She knows its architecture better than anyone, even Arlong. She'll yell out a warning or an instruction to Luffy, "Hit that pillar," or "The tide is coming in, the foundation is weak on the west side," using her knowledge of the building and the sea to give Luffy the final opening he needs to land the finishing blow.
Her expertise being the final key. That would be perfect. It brings her story full circle, using the skills she was forced to learn in captivity to finally achieve her freedom. She turns the symbol of her prison into the key to her liberation. That would be brilliant Oda-level storytelling.
It feels right. She needs to be an active participant in her own liberation, not just a spectator to her own rescue. Her knowledge as a navigator and cartographer has to be her weapon.
Okay, I can't wait to see which one of us is right. This is the final stage of the fight. I can feel it. The gloves are off, the teeth are out, and Luffy has that look in his eye. It's about to go down.
Me too. The dawn is coming for Cocoyasi Village. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week for Chapter 91.